Welcome to A Balanced Life, Finding Productivity and Focus, the podcast that gives you tips and tricks about achieving productivity whilst remaining focused along the way. So what is this podcast about? It's about how to be productive and covering life, work, home and your hobbies. It's going to look at systems, tools and techniques. We're going to go into tips and tricks along the way. We're going to look at the problems that you'll find and the challenges that you'll find with trying to achieve this and the ways that people can struggle yet still manage to find a solution in the end. We're going to look at where to help, who else can you read up and watch, and we're going to look at the technology, both the digital and analog technology that can help you along your way. Come join me on the journey. Let me tell you about my first encounter with productivity and what it meant to me as an individual. I was actually 24 when I had my first encounter with what I call productivity and focus now. At the time, I was working over 12 hours a day. I didn't know how to catch up with everything that I needed to do. I was struggling to get things finished, and I had a massive problem that I couldn't solve. Looking back, I would now say I was unproductive. I wasn't focused, and actually, to be fair, I was drowning. I was lost, I didn't know where to turn, and I didn't know what next steps to take. So I did what many 24-year-olds will do when they get into that kind of problem. I didn't tackle it. I didn't focus on it. I didn't find a way around it. I went downstairs as I was living above a Chinese takeaway at the time. I ordered myself some food. I went down and got it. And I came upstairs and ate it. I had a couple of drinks and I crashed out to sleep. Yet it was that night that I found the focus. I woke up in the middle of the night and it must have been about 2 a.m. I knew the answer to my problem. I'd clearly been drifting in and out of sleep and my brain had been focused on it, and in that semi-conscious state, I could see the next steps. Unbelievably, I also remembered to write it down, and the solution was great. Next morning, I woke up, I felt so much better, I read my answers, and I could go about my day and I'd solved the problem that I had no idea how to do. What did I do? I took time out, I relaxed a bit, I clearly focused even though I may have been semi-awake at the time. I did just one thing and I did it all the way to the end. I had a massive sense of achievement when I'd done it. So 20 years later, I wonder if actually the whole trick of everything is to just get a takeaway and have a drink. If life was that easy, that would be the solution. And it's taken me 20 years to learn some of those lessons I learned while eating that takeaway and having that drink and getting a good night's sleep. Let's go through the rest of the lessons in detail and work out why I didn't pick up on it at the time as well. So you want to start being productive. What are my top tips for how to get going? Well, firstly, and this might seem obvious, but you really need to want to start being productive before you can start learning and being productive. You can't be forced into it, so you can't be told how to do this. If your boss has told you to be more productive and you don't want to be, you probably aren't going to manage to be more productive. It very rarely just happens that you instantly become productive. And if you do, tell me how on earth you've got to that stage. The second tip is that you're going to have to put some time in. Because if you keep doing what you are currently doing, you're not going to change your habits, your ways of working, the things that you're focusing on. So you're going to need to put some time in to develop some ways of working and looking at what you're doing. My third tip is that you don't need to know everything. You don't need to be a productivity master to start being productive. You don't need to know how. You don't need to have a system. You don't need to have a journal. You don't need to have technology. You don't need to have a guide. You just need to start. So that takes me to my last and the top tip that I'll ever give about being productive. You just need to start. Give it a go. If it's 1% effective, you are 1% more effective than you were beforehand. It's not going to be 100% first time, and you're going to evolve things and develop things and change the way you work. But let's give it a go. Getting going is better than procrastinating on it, absolutely. In fact, if you're procrastinating on being productive now, you are not focused, you're not balanced, and you're absolutely not being productive. So you've decided you want to start being productive. Firstly, congratulations. So what do you need to focus on to start off with? Actually, that is the question to ask yourself. What do you need to focus on to start off with? Do you have an immediate need that you need to do? Is there something new at work, life, or in a hobby that you want to start? Try one thing. Try not to put everything into this. Make it something that you want to focus on, and ideally something that you have a vague idea of how to achieve, or more importantly, you know what achievement is. You can then start in two different ways. The first actually leads to the second. So the first is starting with a goal. If you've got a goal of something you want to achieve and that's all you know at this stage, that's fine. That's being productive. Let's define that goal. Let's prioritize that goal. Let's work out how to start it, and then let's get into some tasks. So this is the second way of getting going. This is if you don't have a defined goal or something that you really want to achieve, but you know you've got lots of things you need to do, and these are called tasks or actions. And they'll probably relate to plans and deadlines. They may have supporting other tasks to do. They've probably got outcomes. And one way to look at it is you might have a huge list or a huge to-do things that you've started to look at, and you want to look at this more. Let's start looking at tasks. So how do you be productive with tasks? So first step, define and list the tasks that you want to do. And you can do this in any way, as long as it's something that's reusable and it will last at least a couple of hours. So don't write it in sand on the beach. This could be a list. This could be a set of post-it notes. If you've got a whiteboard and a whiteboard pen, start writing on it now. So for each task, write down the task. It should be like a simple note of what needs to be done. Ideally, it would have a clear end, and you might have a time definition on it, in which case note that down with it. It might have a person that needs to do it. Probably yourself, but it might be someone else, in which case note that down with it. You may start writing the task and realize that actually it's a task made up of 4 or 5 other things. That's fine. If it is, write those 4 or 5 other things down. They're subtasks. They can be tasks as well. Put them on that board. And it could just be 1, 2, or 3 things. If it's starting to get to the stage where you're at 15, 20, 30 tasks, I'd probably stop there. Just limit it to 15, 20 tasks to start off with, because if you write down too many, firstly, it's going to take you all day to write these tasks down. And secondly, when you look at all of those tasks, it is going to feel like you've got a massive forest in front of you and you don't know where to go. So let's limit it to 15, 20 tasks tops. So now you've written down all of those tasks. Take a little bit of a step back and try and look at them all in that helicopter view, that phrase that you'll often heard. So if there is a natural theme to those tasks that can be grouped, actually do that. If there's a natural order of those tasks, actually move those around or note them down. So if it's like, this has got to be done, then that, that's sequential tasking. Note that down so you know where to go. So we're now at your first productivity technique and way of focusing. How am I going to deal with all of those tasks in front of me? I want you to ask yourself this one question. For tomorrow, what is your one must-do task that you can see in front of you? And define this however you want, but commit to that being your one must-do task. Once you've found that task, if there's 1 or 2 tasks that you have been drawn to and want to do, that's okay. Take those out and highlight those as well. You have now reached a very important first stage of being productive. You have got the first and maybe the only thing you need to do tomorrow, and that's the thing you will focus on. That's often called a must-do or a critical task. So when you start, you need to focus on it. And we'll find more tools and techniques for how you can focus later. But for now, just try and focus on it. You want to focus on that task. You want to complete it. You want to mark it as done. If this has given you a massive boost and you're like, excellent, I want to do more, get those 2 or 3 other tasks that you highlighted out and start repeating that process and go through those and get those done. Well done. You've done more than you started the day to do. How do you then use this again? Well, you take a look at that whole task list, and for the next day, you set that one must-do task and potentially the 1 or 2 more things to do with it, and you repeat that exercise tomorrow doing that one must-do. If you've done that for 2 days in a row, you've delivered your 2 must-do tasks for those days and worked it through. Well done, you are being productive. You have focused and been productive on tasks. Well done, give yourself a clap on the back. If you keep this up, you will find yourself always doing the key thing that needs to be done, focusing on it and achieving it and making sure that happens. And don't worry if this is hard. If this was easy, we'd all work like this every day. Sometimes the must-do task is not the easy task or not the one you want to do. But I guarantee you, if you can do this for a few days in a row, you will feel so much better and you have reached that first stage of being productive. So thanks for joining me today and listening to more about how you might get a balanced life and achieve productivity and focus. Hopefully you've learned something, hopefully you've taken something away, and you may have even noted it down. Good luck on being more productive, and hopefully you'll be focused along the way. See you next time.